The U.S. Japan Conference on Cultural and Educational Interchange, CULCON, is a uniquely structured public-private binational advisory panel to the U.S. and Japanese governments on cultural and educational issues. CULCON was established in 1961 with an exchange of notes between President Kennedy and Prime Minister Ikeda. At that time, both countries were still grappling with the aftermath of World War II and trying to construct a meaningful relationship with each other.
The premise that Ambassador Reischauer had was that to establish a true and strong bond between the Japanese and the American people, that it had to be done on a people-to-people basis, that it should involve exchanges, and that it should be in areas of education and culture.
There are 12 of us together on each side, and of the 12, 1/3 is from the public sector or from the government, and 2/3 is from the private sector. The private sector would consist of people in business, people in academia, but this smallness of the number of people, and smallness even if combined with the United States, there are 24 of us, allows for candid, free discussion.
I thought it was ingenious that at this early stage, not just of having discussions on political issues and economic issues, but having them on cultural issues. I had the wonderful, really sublime history with Japan of having served with Reischauer at the beginning of my career and served with Mike Mansfield at the end. Couldn't beat that.
On November 23rd, 1963 was the time that there was a first satellite broadcast brought from the United States, and the Japanese audiences were eagerly waiting to receive a message from President Kennedy, but as you know, it turned out that we received a very tragic news of his assassination. And later on, when we saw the pre-recorded message from President Kennedy, he mentioned the importance of the increasing cultural and educational exchange. And I was 14 years old then, and I barely spoke English, but I kept wondering what he meant by cultural and educational exchange.
Celebrating 50 years of activity, CULCON has become a high-level, dynamic organization. It identifies challenges from balanced media coverage to arts collaboration and responds with creative solutions. The solutions are a direct result of the gatherings and discussions of CULCON's unique grouping of public and private sector members.
The concept of working groups is something that my opposite number, Ben Makihara, the chairman of the Japan panel of CULCON, and I decided to put in place. The idea that we had was severalfold. First, we wanted to focus on problems that could become opportunities for CULCON in its capacity to come up with ideas and responses. Secondly, it was to give an opportunity for the U.S. and Japan panels to get together on specific topics such as the arts, such as education, such as exchanges, look back at our history, but also look forward and see what more could be done. And then thirdly, and I think this is still the work in progress, what Makihara-san and I wanted to do was to see if we could not, through this process of in-depth work on specific topics, looking back at the history, but also looking forward, see if we could come up with one or two big new ideas. In the 1990s, it was identified that there were far more Japanese students, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, going to the United States than there were American students coming to Japan. It was identified in the context of what the CULCON is all about, which is exchanges in education and culture between the two countries, that this was a problem that needed to be resolved. Subsequent to that identification, work was then done, largely here on the U.S. side, working with counterparts in Japan to understand why. What were the reasons that American students were not going to to Japan to study. And a few important facts came out. One is that many American students didn't think it was possible. That was just a fundamental aspect, too difficult to do it. Another aspect was that there were not programs in Japan to receive those students. They were not necessarily well organized in Japan at the university level to receive students. And then thirdly, there was an aspect of cost because Japan is expensive, it's somewhat distant, and so would students have the financial ability to be able to go and do that?
Traditionally, and pretty much still now, most of the Japanese university classes are conducted only in Japanese. And if you are international students, but not a Japanese studies major, it is rather limiting. So by opening up Japanese university curriculum and campus activities in English, we were able to accommodate not only American but other international students. And this has been quite exciting for the Japanese students too. But having this kind of international program, which offers them an opportunity to interact with people from many different countries, it gives them a wider perspective on things, and I think it will be a wonderful opportunity to prepare them to play a leadership role in an international stage somewhere, sometime in the future.
The U.S.-Japan relationship is relatively healthy, thanks in part to CULCON's continued efforts. However, the U.S.-Japan relationship requires sustained attention in a global era.
What CULCON has done is sounded a clarion call about the need for continuing high-level engagement and for Japanese students and others to reach beyond their borders and to work more closely with the United States. We think this is essential. We're entering a world of even greater globalization, more connectedness, and Japan has to be part of that equation. It cannot simply fall back within its borders. And so CULCON has been outstanding in promoting the idea of greater Japanese engagement in the world.
The world is being globalized, and Japan's relations with Asia, including China, is getting more and more important. But still, I believe that the U.S.-Japan relationship is the most important relationship bilaterally for Japan. And I went to the U.S., studied there for 1 year. I stayed in Cleveland, and that broadened my eyes for the world. And therefore, I truly believe that studying abroad or experiencing a life in a foreign country will be quite useful for young people.
Even in a world of sophisticated technology, direct experience remains one of the most profound ways to broaden one's perspective. Toward this end, CULCON established the Bridging Foundation, specifically for raising funds for American students to study abroad in Japan.
And I think what's very powerful about the Bridging Foundation is that it is really the result of a public and private sector initiative that has brought about a very positive result. So let's talk about what that means. We identified one of the key issues as the fact that students didn't have the financial resources to be able to go to Japan. So we came up with the concept of the Bridging Scholar, to raise $5,000 per student, which would then be available as a stipend to allow that student to travel to Japan and also to have their living expenses. Tuition, of course, can be applied from the home university to the Japanese university. But this $5,000 really is the facilitating amount that enables those students to go.
Without the Bridging Scholarship, I couldn't have gone to Japan. It was very clear to me from my parents, and financially speaking, that if I could not go to Japan for less than I was studying in the United States, that it wouldn't happen. So I was very eager to find other sources which would help me get to Japan, and bridging was just this absolutely natural fit. What really galvanized my love for the Japanese people was my time in the men's dormitory at International Christian University. So they gave foreign students the opportunity to live with other Japanese students. There's about 40 of us in the second men's dorm that we were in. And they really became brothers to me. I lived with a Japanese roommate. We bonded together through initiation ceremonies that we had, through studying in courses together, and just living life together.
We stayed with host families for like a 10-day period. We were all in separate houses, so we couldn't rely on our fellow Americans to make us feel comfortable and whatnot. And so that was my first experience there, and I really felt like I was able to connect with my host family despite not being fluent in Japanese, and it kind of just made me thirsty for more. So coming back from Fukuoka, I knew I wanted to study Japanese in college and major in East Asian studies. And when I entered Columbia University, I did just that. And during my third year, I went to the Kyoto Center for Japanese Studies as an exchange student and as a bridging scholar at the same time. And that was a year-long program, again, where I lived with the host family in Kyoto the whole time. And that was also an awesome experience. We're still in touch today. Like, I still go see them. We're Facebook friends.
CULCON serves as a convener and facilitator of organizations engaged in U.S. Japan exchange. Not only does CULCON promote people-to-people exchange, it also encourages a next generation to nurture and broaden its networks.
So as a former JET program participant who still loves Japan but decided to come back home, I find it encouraging that we have so many JET program alumni associations that are scattered throughout the United States. And they helped coordinate events like Japanese cultural events in their cities. They also helped to recruit future JET program participants. And even with the earthquake and the kind of support, the Tohoku support and outreach, the JET Alumni Association has been very involved. So I think in the future, in terms of helping to strengthen and grow the relationship between Japan and the United States, I think like tapping into the resource of the JET Program Alumni Association would be very helpful.
Disaster tests the strength of any relationship. The outpouring of American support after the 3/11 disaster in Japan were a testament to the depth of the U.S. Japan bond and the work of organizations such as CULCON.
The 3/11 tragedy showed some real strengths in Japan that people had either forgotten about or not seen. The self-defense force performance, volunteerism. You don't think of volunteerism in Japanese society, but it was huge and impressive. And the warmth and outpouring of help from Americans, private citizens, the U.S. military, embassy officials. There were people in the U.S. Embassy working to help with recovery and relief who were actually on leave from serving in Iraq or Afghanistan, and took their personal leave time because they'd served in Japan before and cared about Japan to go right there and use their vacation time to help.
CULCON continues to be as relevant as when it was created 50 years ago. As Japan recovers from its largest natural disaster ever, and in the context of increased interdependence among nations, CULCON is creating partnerships to raise the level of its activity in shaping the future direction of the U.S.-Japan relationship.
But now, the role that of organizations like CULCON reaching out to affected communities, reminding all of us that so much more work needs to be done in the recovery in northern Japan. In all of these ways, CULCON has been essential.
I hope that the media, not only in Japan but in the United States, will increase the coverage of CULCON, and so that people will become aware of the constructive role which CULCON can play in strengthening the bilateral relationship.
I think that the basic concept, I think, still works very well. We can reach out to more people and use the information that we've gathered, the resources that we've created, and make those available to more Americans and Japanese from all walks of life.
Given the strength of the ties between Japan and the United States, sustained attention to the bilateral relationship is crucial to the prosperity of both nations and the global community. Building on its past accomplishments, CULCON is fostering global leaders and pursuing new ideas and opportunities for public-private partnerships.